There's a power within you. It lifts your life to its highest level. It brings success, companionship, happiness, health, and peace of mind. As you tap into this power, it will respond to you because this power is within you. And that's why spirituality rocks. Welcome. I'm your host. I'm Dr. Janine Burns, and I teach practical spirituality under the New Thought guise. And we teach there's one presence and power in the universe that expresses in you, through you, and as you. We're going to go into a lot more detail today because I have an absolutely outstanding guest with us on the show today, who I'll be bringing on in a little while, is the Reverend Derrick Wells from Christ Universal Temple in Chicago, Illinois. He is one of the ministries in the Universal Foundation for Better Living, founded by the Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman. So I am so excited to have him on because I have been watching his YouTube videos, and this man can teach like it's nobody's business. He is inspirational, he's motivational, and he's dynamic. But I want to start with something that a lot of people are doing. It's called Oath of Manifestation. I believe it was put out by the Agape Church, that's Michael Beckwith out in Los Angeles, California. So I'd like to read this to you. There's a lot of people who are working this affirmative prayer every single day. It's really more for an affirmation. It's not an affirmative prayer because it doesn't really talk about God. And in affirmative prayer, we always get clear on what God is and our connection and relationship to God. But I want to read it. It says, I accept and receive unexpected good, unexpected money, unexpected love, unexpected kindness, unexpected generosity, unexpected offers, unexpected prosperity coming to me in unexpected ways from unexpected places in my life and the life of others. I'm constantly guided and boldly empowered to receive the lavish abundance of the universe. I accept the principle that abundance and prosperity have already been given to me. My acceptance makes it real and opens the space for manifestation to rush in. I open wide the doors of my consciousness to receive and to give, and it is done now. Through the oath of manifestation, all things are possible. It's actually through God that all things are possible, but we'll roll with it. I declare absolutely that I live in a friendly universe that is always providing for me. I feel it powerfully happening now. I open to receive more abundance and to give more abundance than I've ever experienced before. I can afford anything I desire. In fact, I'm so prosperous, I need never worry again. I'm grateful for all that I already have. I'm grateful for all that I'm ready to give. I keep myself lifted in high consciousness no matter what the appearances are. God is all there is. I let the God times roll, and so it is. So I got a little spiritual in the end there. That's good. So I just want to invite you can check it out. Go to Google and look up Oath of Manifestation. But no more wasting any more energy here on anything but bringing on my guest for the next hour. I've given him a whole hour because his message is strong, it's powerful, and there's a lot of clarity. And what I want you to know about the Reverend Derrick is that he's the senior minister of Christ Universal Temple in Chicago, Illinois. He has such a capacity to make New Thought principles really, really clear. He's a very, very engaging teacher. And what I really admire, too, is that he's what you'd call a man of all seasons. He served in the United States Navy. He's a decorated veteran. And he also was a contributing author to a recently released book, Spiritual Principles for a Prosperous Life. In fact, he is working on another book I just found out. So welcome to Spirituality Rocks, Reverend Derrick Wells.
Hey, thank you for having me, Reverend Janine. It's a pleasure and honor to be on. I'm excited about the opportunity to share with you. I'm really excited and looking forward to it.
I am too. Awesome. So, you know what, I'd like to jump in so that we can have a real foundation so that people watching the show from the beginning to the end, we can build up. Let's talk about fundamental principles. For instance, the idea about the omnipresence of God and our connection. Please speak to that.
Okay. So this idea of omnipresence of God is really sort of this notion that God is the ground of all being, or as has been said, or that everything exists or ever will exist is pressed out of, expressed out of, or comes out of the body of God. And we might refer to that as God's substance. And really it just sort of gives us an indication that irrespective of how things appear, at the core of all creation is God and is God's good. And, when we live in a world where many things are changing and we begin to see sort of all manner of quote unquote demonstration, sometimes we can become disillusioned about what the appearance means, and we begin to give the appearance meaning when oftentimes the appearance only has the meaning that we give it. But the truth is that God is, right? So if we were to just sort of journey back to the Genesis story, and, if you take as a matter of certainty the sort of Genesis story that everything evolves from the God idea or the God presence, then when it's all boiled down, when it's all stripped away, when all of the pretense is done, when all of the opinion is done, at the core of our being, at the core of creation, is God and is God's good. And while it's certainly one's prerogative to have a perspective that the core of being is anything other than God, I'm certainly excited about the opportunity to realize that God is, and that God essence is with me. And not only is that God essence with me, but that God essence is me. So even in those moments wherein I begin to misjudge myself, if I can bring myself back to the truth that God is, then I can begin to have a paradigm shift and create the way for a new reality.
That's great. So the God essence is who I am.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
And I think that's such a critical fundamental principle to New Thought, that I'm not sure people embrace that. But like you just said, if we remember to remember, that Dennis Merritt Jones uses that phrase, remember to remember,
yeah,
and get back to that spirit, then just a whole world of possibility unfolds for us.
Absolutely. And the Apostle Paul said it this way, or wrote it this way: Christ in you, your hope of glory. Right? If we recognize that Christ is God's idea of God's self in us, just as the Christ was God's anointed idea of God's self in Jesus, and we hear, or we're reminded of Paul's words that Christ in us is our hope of glory, I think one of the key phrases in that statement is that Christ in us, right? Not Christ in someone's opinions, not Christ in my experience, but Christ in me, right? Christ purified, uplifted, aware, and expert in me. It's got its benefits.
Yeah, I apologize. We have a little break in Skype. Sometimes it's the weather, but we got the gist of what you're saying about the divinity of humankind. And so, with that idea in mind, I want to just comment. We were talking off air a little bit, how I was always surprised, because I used to travel around the United States and speak a lot, and I would teach here and there, and so surprised that in the Science of Mind textbook, because my background is religious science. Your background is Universal Foundation for Better Living, and when you studied in the Johnny Coleman Institute, they took Unity, they took religious science, they took all New Thought, they took divine science, Melinda Kramer, all the leaders in New Thought. So you'll be familiar with what I'm speaking of. And in the Science of Mind textbook, there are several chapters on Jesus. And it always amazed me how people would just gloss over those chapters, ignore the Christianity part, and just get involved in mental science. And I think that, Ernest Holmes said at the end of his life, he said, if he had anything to do differently, he would have focused more on love instead of law. Law meaning how God, for those, in our Javui audience, law meaning the action of God, how it works. Speak to that. I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, so just a couple things. The first is that I think we have to be very careful as theologians and as thinkers and as mind scientists. Whenever you begin to deal with a particular science, it's always wise to, in science, begin from the seminal base, right? You begin with the seminal work. So most scientists are careful to not disregard the work that has helped the information and whatever the respective discipline is evolve to a particular place. I think that's no different for us as New Thought Christians or as metaphysical Christians. We can't lose the Christ out of the Christianity. And while the law is a vital part of how we understand our theology, we also do not want to lose sight of the love, right? So in some of Fillmore's works, he talks about the divine paradox.
Yes.
Right. Talks divine paradox, where he begins to look at what appears to be competing positions for how we understand God. God as Father, Mother, God as law of grace, God as immanent, God as transcendent. And so what that helps us to do is open up our understanding about what God is. And it gives us a better picture, I believe, of what God is. And by getting a better picture of what God is, we get a better picture of what we are. Okay. But I love what you said about making sure that love is as integrated into our message as is the law. Because really, when it all boils down to the human experience, when it all boils down to the human relationship, the inescapable piece that we have at our disposal is the love, right? The ability to love. As a matter of fact, love is the highest expression and demonstration of the law when we really understand what love is and what law is.
Yes.
Because if God is love and if God is law, then love and law are not disparate theories. They're actually one and the same. Right. And so as they are one and the same, just as we attempt to demonstrate or talk about our theology through our particular lens, it gives us the ability to talk a universal language. See, love gives us the ability to talk and teach a universal language. That's one of the as successful as less.
Okay, we heard you up to love gives us a universal language, but it says internet connection problem. There's a problem with the internet connection between you two. Hold on. Okay, looks like Skype is going to fix it. Janine, is it an appropriate time to take a commercial then? Yeah, you know what, we're going to take a commercial break so that we can get the Skype worked out, because this is a very important show today. We're going to cover basic fundamental principles of New Thought, and we're also going to talk about goal setting. So stay tuned for more of Spirituality Rocks with the Reverend Derrick Wells. Thank you.
Stretching under sedation or manipulation under anesthesia is a very gentle, very precise procedure to very slowly release any scar tissue that is formed as a result of a traumatic injury. Many people ask, how does this work? Will I get hurt? Will you stretch me too far? We only stretch the body part to its normal range of motion. After completing the post-MUA rehabilitation program, it's very common that our patients say to us, hey, I can play ball with my kid again. Hey, I can bowl again. Hey, I can enjoy hiking again. This is what makes it rewarding to us as practitioners.
After all the candles are blown out, after the last toast of the night, Cambridge paving stones with ArmorTech stand the test of time. Beautifully designed, built to last.
Only Cambridge paving stones have ArmorTech, our unique process that produces a rich, distinctive color.
Create your own memories with Cambridge paving stones. Visit CambridgePavers.com.
Cambridge paving stones with ArmorTech will always look like new.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome back to Spirituality Rocks. I'm your host, Dr. Janine Burns, and I teach practical spirituality. Thrilled to have with me today via Skype from Chicago, Illinois, the inspirational, motivational, and truly dynamic Reverend Derrick B. Wells. Welcome back.
Hey, good to be back, Dr. Janine.
Awesome, cool. Okay, so before the break, we were talking about the divinity of humankind, and I think we've got a real clarity and understanding on that. Now let's jump to the power of thought, the value of thought, so that we have a good sequential understanding for the viewers.
Yes. Okay, so then it is by our thought and through our thinking that we shape our life, world, and affairs.
Say that again. That's huge. It's through our thought and by our thinking.
Through our thinking that we create our life, world, and affairs.
Beautiful.
Right? So when Thoreau says that the mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation, what is he talking about, right? Because two people can be going through a very similar experience, and in that same experience or on that same job or in that same family, one person can be experiencing heaven, bliss, joy, and happiness, and the other can be experiencing hell, bondage, every kind of storm. And the thing that perhaps makes the biggest degree of difference in those two perspectives is just that, the perspective, the thinking of each individual, and how it is we use intentionally and intelligently our ability to think to create the kind of lives we desire. So one of the things that I love about our philosophy or our theology, this New Thought Christian perspective, is that it reminds us and encourages us to take responsibility for the way that we think, because we recognize by doing so, even when we find ourselves having experiences that don't necessarily line up with what we consider to be the best and highest for us, we have only to change our thought, to allow that change in thought to resonate with a particular aspect of our feeling nature, and to then begin to create the space whereby we can have a new experience, a new relationship, a new job, a new business, a new opportunity to experience life at greater and deeper levels. So it's important to be mindful and intentional about how we are creating our experiences through the way that we think.
Through the way we think. I love that you said intentionally and intelligently. So I would say intelligently, meaning getting clear on that which we choose to experience in our life, what qualities of spirit.
Absolutely.
Life, love, peace, power, beauty, and joy. But I think that also refers to we've got to study. We have to read. We have to study. We have to take the time every day to nourish our consciousness.
Yeah. Well, soul growth does not happen by mistake, right? After a certain point in our lives, our physical organism, even our physical organism, will plateau plateau in terms of the impetus for us to grow. But when it comes to soul growth, when it comes to mental or intellectual growth, even when it comes to the awareness of spiritual growth, those are all aspects of our development that require our intention and our attention. They don't happen by osmosis. They don't happen by chance. They happen when we, again, intentionally and intellectually put our desire, our thinking, our feeling, and begin to set out in ways that enable us to grow. And oftentimes it's just difficult to attract an experience that you have not set the consciousness for, or as Emmett Fox would say, there's no such thing as undemonstrated understanding, right? So it's through our thinking that we flesh out our understanding. And one of the things that I appreciate about thinking is that in order for one to be a thinker, it is in essence to also be very vulnerable, right? We contemplate those things that we don't quite understand. And so it's through this contemplation that one of the reasons why we sometimes are not as willing to think is because the very process of thinking is also oftentimes an admission of a lack of awareness. But it's by that same process that we come to know and we come to understand. So we have a responsibility to play in how it is we get to where it is we were created to be.
Right. Wonderful, wonderful. Next is the idea of practicing the presence.
Mm-hmm.
So we know Joel Goldsmith. For those of you who are Goldsmith fans, we had a Goldsmith teacher on recently. Practicing the presence, how do you define it?
So I would say that we practice the presence through prayer, through meditation, and through sitting in the silence, right? So I would say that prayer is our communion with God. Prayer is the conscious communion with God. Meditation might be considered as those moments wherein we contemplate on the aspects of God. So if we say that God is love, and we begin to through chanting or through just letting one's mind roam through the concept of love, or through how you understand love, or through how you've seen love demonstrated in your life, or even just in your meditation, repeating to yourself over and over again the word love, will begin to open up an understanding or a door or a gateway whereby a greater or deeper understanding can emerge. And when we say sitting in the silence, that is the opportunity that we have to make sure that we're not purely by the sweat of our brow, so to speak, attempting to evolve consciousness, right? There's something to be said to hearing what thus said the Lord in your own soul, right? That's really our compass. That's our spiritual compass. What good is it to have an omniscient God that you don't listen to, right? What's the benefit? What's the benefit of being connected to the life-giving one if you're not going to take instruction on how to live life through the one that gave you the life? So we owe it to ourselves. We owe it to ourselves. God does not lose anything when we don't avail ourselves to what God has to say to us, or what God has to in store for us, or what the Spirit is trying to reveal to us. We are the ones who gain fruitfully by opening ourselves up to our best and highest, greatest presence, and to hear from that which is not limited by our understanding, or that which is not limited by our perceptions, but in fact that which can open up our understanding and open up our perceptions and open up our perspective and help us to gain vision and see world and see possibilities that before we attuned ourselves to the Spirit of God, we may have never come upon, right? It's also oftentimes in the silence where those ideas come from.
Absolutely.
Right? So when those pure impulses of the Spirit come, as Jesus said, my sheep know my voice. But that knowing of the voice comes from time spent with the shepherd, right? So we want to make sure that we spend time in the silence, not just counting off to God all the good desires of our heart, but also taking time to hear from the omniscient, life-giving one, and letting that be the light that illuminates our path.
And besides that glorious opportunity, as you just said, to receive divine ideas, the medical benefits are just numerous for meditating. But that's my favorite thing, is if you're just, now what I've been seeing a lot lately, and it's just been coming to my awareness, is visualizing light. And I've been thinking, the Bible says, let there be light, as soon as you open it up and read. And there's one YouTube video where they just imagine a funnel of light coming through you and just filling your whole body and then radiating out from you. White Eagle has a whole thing on visualizing light, but it's really as simple as either doing that or maybe taking a mantra or just watching your breathing. It's just about quieting your mind. And I just love that the more we're willing to do that, the more then we are practicing the presence and walking in the conscious awareness. You're like, wow, you find yourself in the right place at the right time, and just wonderful things unfolding. And it's
Absolutely.
just willingness. It is willingness.
Absolutely.
I have a question about that, but let's just jump into the law of demonstration before the next break. Now, if the people are wondering, I went on the website, and if you look, there's a banner across the bottom of the screen. You can go to www.cutemple.org, and you can find more information there. You can purchase CDs of Reverend Derrick's talk, or you can go right over to YouTube and just in the search engine write Derrick, D-E-R-R-I-C-K, that's also under our screen, Wells, and you will find a plethora of videos that are just fabulous, that you can really sit and embrace. And what I was telling the Reverend, that what I did is I have YouTube on my television and through my Sonos speakers, so I can just turn it on in the background while I'm doing the dishes, or I can sit and really stay focused. But I just love being spiritually fed, even while I'm doing other tasks. So I thank you for that. And so it was on the website where I found your basic principles that all your classes are focused upon. And the next one is the law of demonstration. Tell us about the law of demonstration.
Right. So, and really it sort of breaks down almost through a compilation, right? So when one commits themselves to recognizing the omnipresence of God, and when one commits themselves to recognizing their own divinity, and when one intelligently and intently applies the value and power of their thought, and when one takes time out of their very busy day and busy schedule and busy life to pray, meditate, and sit in the silence, what comes out of the use of those principles is a requisite demonstration, right? So it's different when you create a source for the universe or a channel for the universe to fill you up, then the universe will do just like that.
Nice.
So it's the practicing of those presents. It's what helps create and facilitate and nurture the consciousness that makes the way for the vast demonstration. Because one thing is sure, God knows how to take care of God's self. And when we align ourselves in consciousness with this God idea and with this God consciousness, that flows right out into our life, world, and affairs, just as you said earlier.
That's wonderful. I love that. You just made me think. I have a CD of spiritual jingles, and takes affirmations, put it to music, and one of them is the energy and power of spirit flows through me right now. The energy and power of spirit renews and heals me now. And I just thought of that one then. That identification is so critical in New Thought. Yeah, I'll send you one. And Deepak Chopra endorsed it, so it's done quite well. So, Janine, is it commercial time? Let me have a sign. She's shaking her head. Okay, because I want to jump in afterwards and talk about goals, but it's time for a commercial break. It's not going to be a long commercial break, so stay tuned. We'll be right back with more of the Reverend Derrick Wells on Spirituality Rocks.
My name is Dr. Robert Brevard. I'm here for Multi-Medicine in Westbury, New York. We're located at 1065 Old Country Road, Suite 214. Been here for about 15 years. The practice has medical doctors, physical therapists, chiropractors, acupuncturists. We also do pain management, and we have orthopedists on staff. Here at Advanced Multi-Medicine Rehabilitation, we've got physical therapists on staff who treat an array of conditions, from neck pain to back pain, shoulder pain. We treat carpal tunnel. We treat a lot of car accident patients, slip and falls. We treat patients with knee injuries, with ankle injuries. We have state-of-the-art equipment. We've been here for over 15 years. Vast array of diagnostic testing, from x-rays to EMGs. What is an EMG? It's a diagnostic test that allows a doctor to determine where the pinched nerve is. Cora is a physical therapist at Advanced Multi-Medicine and Rehabilitation. She's working on Stephanie, who was involved recently in an automobile accident. Stephanie has tight thoracic and cervical musculature, and Cora is doing some myofascial release work and some therapeutic stretching to help her with her pain. Vicky is also a patient here at Advanced Multi-Medicine and Rehabilitation. Vicky is now working her leg muscles, specifically her quadricep muscles, trying to strengthen them after an injury she sustained. If you find yourself in need of any type of physical therapy, please don't hesitate to call Advanced Multi-Medicine and Rehabilitation, located in Westbury, New York, in Suite 214. Phone number is 516-334-7000, or find us on our website at advancedmultimedicine.com.
Welcome back to Spirituality Rocks. I've got some good news for you. Remember a couple of weeks ago, Dr. Tim Stewart from the Divine Science Federation, he's their new president. They made an offer that was outstanding. When they went to move their offices, they realized they had an overabundance of paperbacks of the works of Melinda Kramer, Fannie James, and Nona Brooks. Fannie James wrote Truth and Health, which is like one of their textbooks. Nona Brooks, Mysteries and In the Light of Healing, and then a 3-volume set called Come Unto Me, which is all about Bible study. And you can get all 6 books for the low price of $39. All you need to do is send an email to dsfi@me.com. That stands for Divine Science Federation International at me.com. So that's dsfi@me.com. And you can just request the books. If you want them sent priority mail, it's an extra $10, but that $39 even includes shipping. That is such a treasure trove of materials, and I'm so excited to be able to bring that to you on Spirituality Rocks. I think the Reverend is writing down the information on his pad there.
Yes.
Oh, you'd love those. That 3-volume one, Come Unto Me, is all about Bible study with Melinda Kramer. I think you'd really like that. Yeah, indeed. Okay, so what I want the people to know is that you can go onto YouTube, check out Derrick Wells on YouTube and hear him speak, and you can really be inspired. What I want to talk about now is goals. I want to talk about goal setting because I really love the take that you have on goal settings, which fundamentally was beginning with you have to be clear on your goals and get some goals. Because I think a lot of people might be like a cork floating on the water, just sort of bouncing around through life, waiting to see what happens, or maybe saying, well, yeah, I'd like this, I'd write that, but not staying focused and clear. So tell us your take on goals, please.
Okay, so I agree with what you just said. I think there's a saying that no wind favors a ship that has no destined port, right? So it's important that we really sort of, in our own souls, determine where it is we would like to go. So what goals do is they give us some very specific targets to shoot for. And I'm actually a proponent of the SMART goal acronym that suggests that goals ought to be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and sort of time-stamped. And so when we talk about ensuring that our goals, our desires are specific, I'm reminded of, and I don't know if this is Charles Fillmore or who, but they say you have to be definite with the infinite, right? So if you and I can be clear in our minds of exactly what it is we desire to have, then the universe can get to work on our behalf, helping to bring into manifestation that which we have specifically established in our souls. But one of the other things is that it ought to be measured, right? Because generally what gets measured is what gets done. And in terms of our goals, like if my goal is to lose weight, then how exactly am I going to know when I am successful? How do I keep score? So one of the reasons that athletics is so compelling is the scoreboard, right? It's knowing the score that makes the competition worthwhile. Just we never actually really hardly ever see at a professional level people just running around for the sport of it. No, it's being able to determine where you are in relation to what the goal is, and if the goal is to win, you gotta be able to measure when it is you're where you ought to be. The A in that SMART goal is for attainable. So it ought to be something that you can accomplish. And the R is for realistic. And I think the attainable and the realistic with one another, because it does not do us any proper. Were you going to say something?
Yes, you got bleeped out there when you said the R for realistic. Okay.
Realistic.
Okay.
Right. So the goal ought to be realistic, and I was saying that the A for the attainable and the R for the realistic sort of work in concert, right? Because in terms of how we are motivated, right? Given that it said that we're motivated either toward a specific thing or away from a particular thing, if the goal is not realistic, then our motivation won't be what we need it to be in order to attain the goal.
Right.
And then the T is for timed, in that we give ourselves a certain period of time to accomplish the particular goal, the particular objective, the particular desire, so that we don't give ourselves this open-ended out. Right. If in fact we're not holding ourselves accountable for what it takes to accomplish the goal. So I do think that goals are important because it gives us something to shoot for, and it gives us an opportunity to facilitate that growth we were talking about earlier in the program.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of goals, and I'm also a big fan of lists. And what I do with my list is sometimes I will write things on my list that you'd think, oh, that's ridiculous to put on the list. But sometimes when I have so many things going on, it's important to put even the minutia on the list. And then my favorite thing to do is when I've accomplished something, I cross it out and I write the word victory.
All right. No, I love that. I'm the same.
You're the same way?
But I keep my list two ways.
Okay.
I keep my list mentally,
yeah,
and I keep my list written. I usually write my list out when my mental list begins to get overloaded, and I'm not able to keep track with it the way that I need to. So then I write it down, and I do the same thing that you just said. I'll take once I'm done with it, I cross it off. But what I think I'm going to have to adopt and go green on is writing the victory on it when I cross it out. I'm going to recycle that.
Yeah, isn't that great? And also, when you think of victory, I don't know about you, but I think of God, and rising up in the majesty of your divinity, victory. So I like that one. And let's see, Terry Cole Whitaker was the one who said that when you take your ideas and write them down, that what you in fact are doing is creating more space for divine ideas to come through.
Yes.
Okay, so goals. I watched one of your talks today, which I get so excited that you're going to be on the show after watching your talks. Just what a great teacher. You talked about self-concept, self-confidence, and self-control. And I love what you said about self-concept and accepting yourself for who you are. Could you tell the people a little bit about that idea?
Yes. So, Doc, I think it oftentimes in our sort of everyday workaday lives, it becomes easy for us to lose sight of ourselves or to lose sight of the self. Now, it perhaps can become an easy process back to self-realization when you understand who you are and whose you are, or when you understand that you are made in the image and after the likeness of God. Mm-hmm. But I do think that the God idea and the God identity ought to be the thing that roots and informs any of our self-concept. But I think all too often we want, because we can also be egoic beings, we allow our self-concept to be shaped by what we do professionally, or the amount of money that we have, or where we live, or where we were educated. And I mean, those things all certainly add to the quote-unquote identity, but they are not the ideal aspect of the identity. Mm-hmm. And so when we begin to work with our self-concept, it's important to first recognize oneself as a spiritual being and to be comfortable with spiritual being.
Be comfortable with
self-concept.
That Skype glitch, I believe I heard you say, is being comfortable with the awareness that you are a spiritual being.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
Good.
Then I think where I was going next is to also able to accept and embrace the quote unquote limitations of the persona, or your respective or my respective peccadillos, and not allow those to be the hallmarks or the standard identifiers that we apply to ourselves. Right. So I tweeted not too long ago. Perhaps one of the reasons that Jesus said forgive 70 times 7 is because we all too often punish ourselves over and over and over and over and over again for mistakes that we made long time ago. So it's just important to be able to be holistic in one's concept of self.
Right. Beautiful. I just heard you say you tweeted out there. What's your Twitter handle?
Rev Derrick Wells, I believe.
Probably is Rev Derrick Wells. Yeah, that's how I found you on Skype.
I think that's it for Facebook and Twitter.
Okay, terrific, because I'd like to follow you on Twitter. That's great.
Sweet. Yeah,
it is good. Okay, so how about this idea of self-control? Because, I see people who they've studied New Thought, they are practitioners, they're licensed practitioners, but they're not willing to take care of themselves, or they're not willing to do things. Do you believe it's something, there's a paradigm of the subconscious mind that needs to be uprooted, neutralized, and eliminated? What is it when they know spiritual principle that they're not willing to do their spiritual homework, or that their self-esteem is still in the gutter, to put it bluntly?
To be frank, Doc, I think it could be all of the above and beyond, right? The thing about the subconscious nature is we just don't know what it is, or the extent to which we have repressed or suppressed certain aspects of our soul or certain aspects of our psyche. And oftentimes when we suppress aspects of ourselves, and this is why self-concept is important, when we suppress aspects of ourselves that are seeking reconciliation back to the self, we create these experiences wherein those things that require your attention, your love, your nurturing, your daemon, if you will, or the aspect of your being, or the aspect of your soul that causes you to get angry or allows you to get angry, that wants to be reconciled back into
wholeness. I'm guessing
I'm sort of reminded of
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, you bleeped out for your second. So reconcile back into wholeness.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. And I was getting ready to say, I'm reminded of the story of Saul as he was, as the lot fell on him to become the king. And when the lot fell on him to become king, he could be found hiding behind the luggage, right? Now here he is, this tall, beautiful, strapping, qualified young man with deep capacity. And when the lot falls on him, he's hiding, right? That's some aspect of his egoic nature that has him functioning in ways that are out of alignment with an experience that his soul has attracted to him.
Okay.
But what we come to learn about him later on is that the ego that he was suppressing and hiding from early on is rampant and out of control when he's the king and he's trying to kill David because he sees greatness and potential in David, right?
Right.
So, and when we talk about somebody being out of control, he was literally beside himself, out of control. But I think we're all like that when we recognize that there are states and stages of consciousness within our subconscious nature that drive us, and we're not aware of it. So it's important to be controlled. And like one of the things I think, one of the ways is that for me?
Nope. Okay. One of the ways.
One of the ways in which we manage self-control is through the self-connection, right? Through the connection that we have with the one presence and one power, God the good.
So then we really, then it sounds from what you just said, need to take time every day and just strengthen that connection and awareness. That's really what it's all about. Yeah.
That's where our strength is.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
right? As the scripture says, in quietness and confidence shall be your strength. In the quietness of what? In the quiet times with the God presence, right? Or in the quiet assurance of the God presence.
Wonderful. Well, that little sign you saw me make, that was me, the producer speaking to me. That means it's time for another commercial break. So stay tuned. We have another segment left with the Reverend Derrick Wells from Christ Universal Temple, Chicago, Illinois, on Spirituality Rocks.
This is Beth.
Hi.
Oh, congratulations. When are you due?
I'm not pregnant.
Oh, look at that. Excuse me.
You're totally thin.
You look very sexy.
For life's bleachable moments, all it takes is 3/4 of a cup.
Yo, what's up, y'all? This is me, TMC, in the place to be, the greatest MC in history. There will never be an MC greater than me. And right about now, the only place for you to be is with your one and only Madhouse TV. You are the man.
Dunkin' Donuts are always fresh. I made the donuts. We make them at least twice every day. Time to make the donuts. Not a few kinds, like supermarket. Made the donuts. Time to make the donuts. But up to 52 varieties. The donuts. Time to make the donuts. I made the donuts. Dunkin' Donuts, up to 52 varieties, fresh day and night. No supermarket can say.
You are watching or listening to Spirituality Rocks. Check us out on Facebook, Spirituality Rocks. There is a group and a page. Please like us, and then you will have the videos that you'll be able to have access to the videos. Of course, they're always on YouTube. You can go to My Madhouse TV or just type in Spirituality Rocks. A shout out to Tommy Marr and Janine Zarelli, my engineers, studio owners, making this show possible. I sincerely appreciate them. And my great level of gratitude to my guest today, and that is the Reverend Derrick Wells. Gosh, I've just really enjoyed this time we've had together, Reverend Derrick. And I'd like to ask you now about the idea of prosperity. Are you with me? Looks like he's got a little. Looks like he's frozen up on the screen there. You there? You there, Reverend? Okay, we're going to call him back. You're going to hear some weird noises right now. That's us connecting back on Skype. And but in the meantime, what I wanted to talk to the Reverend about is the Reverend has this unusual idea on prosperity, and he's back with us right now. And he says prosperity cannot be limited to money and things. I said to the Reverend, on Long Island, there's a lot of people into money and things, and they're defining that as prosperity. How do you define prosperity, Reverend Derrick Wells?
I would define prosperity as having what you want when you want it.
Okay.
Right. And so prosperity can certainly encompass money and things, but to someone who is flush with cash, but sort of bereft in their body temple, and the medical sciences are not quite able to bring their bank account to alignment with the healing presence that's within them, then they might be financially rich, but in terms of their quality of life, they may not be experiencing prosperity at all. It could also be that there's someone who is very rich in love and relationship. Their relationships are extremely prosperous, but their bank account may not be what they would like for it to be. And yet they consider themselves to be prosperous because for them, it may not be about the money or about the things, but instead it's about what they value, if in fact they value relationship. So to put it simply, I would define prosperity as having what you want when you want it, or having the consciousness to attract what you want when you want it.
Wonderful. I'd like to jump subjects here, and I'm very curious, what are some of your favorite New Thought books? What are your favorite New Thought books?
My favorite New Thought books?
Yeah.
Some of my favorite New Thought books, Lessons in Truth by H. Emily Cady, that's a favorite. The anthology of Allison Harrell is a favorite. Obviously, Reverend Coleman's books, Open Your Mind and Be Healed, and It Works If You Work It. But Charles Fillmore, I didn't actually, because I really enjoy the metaphysical aspect of metaphysical Christianity. I'm a huge fan and proponent of metaphysical interpretation, right? I think, just in terms of exegesis of a particular text, I think our metaphysical perspective is a wonderful way to interject another perspective or another paradigm into the theological discourse. I'm a huge proponent I love I enjoy.
You like reading? Yeah. Oh, we have 3 minutes. We have 3 minutes left. So Elizabeth Sands Turner is the author of some metaphysical Bible studies. There's a metaphysical Bible dictionary. Who did you say the anthology of Allison?
Harrell.
How do you spell that?
Harrell.
Now, who is Allison Harrell?
Allison Harrell was actually a minister that was ordained by Reverend Coleman.
Oh.
He is the husband of Wilmetta Harrell, who's a staff minister right now at Christ Universal Temple. He's arguably the most prolific writer in the history of Universal Foundation for Better Living.
Yes, and I do recognize the name from the magazine. Yeah.
Yes.
So tell the people about that Daily Reader. We just have a couple of minutes left. Tell them about the Daily Reader.
Yep. So the Daily Inspiration is the periodical. It's a bi-monthly periodical, and just really sort of gives the reader an inspirational thought to carry with them for that day, to help keep us on course, help remind us of truth, or just to help us get our day off to a fantastic start. It's a great read.
Good. So I'd like the people to check out cutemple.org. You can contact the Reverend Derrick through there. He's also on Facebook, Reverend Derrick Wells. You can see him there. But do go to YouTube because he has so many inspirational videos and they're fantastic. So, any parting words for our TV audience?
I would just say keep tuning in to Spirituality Rocks, because if this is what you're getting, you don't want to miss this. The other thing that I want to say is I keep seeing you throw up the rock and roll sign, so maybe we'll get a chance to rock lock when I see you, right?
That'll be great.
Yeah. All right, so we'll get a chance to rock lock as soon as I see you.
Well, you can expect a tithe from me because I'll tell you, I'm inspired from my head to my toes. I just want to tell you that I love you, I bless you, I appreciate you, and I'm really so grateful that you've joined us on Spirituality Rocks.
Thank you, Rev. It was a blast. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, you take good care. Now,
you do the same. God bless.
You too. God bless. Watch the roll credits at the end of the screen, and one of the organizations you will see is the Universal Foundation for Better Living, so that you can learn more about practical spirituality. Tune in next week. We have another fantastic show for you. We're having an energy healer, and we're having Dee Dee Lyons, who is an inspirational coach for women. Thank you again for joining me for this episode of Spirituality Rocks.